Good night to all. We will start in a couple, just give it 1 minute or two. I'm going live only on Facebook tonight. So just give it a minute or two, okay? Give some time for people to tune in. Hey, good night everybody. Buenas noches a todos. Ya sé que se han conectado. Tengo a Pedro Caban ahí, mi hermano. I'm just gonna do a live on Facebook. I was having some issues with connecting to YouTube, but what I'll do, I'll save it. And actually, it went live. I'm sorry, it did go live. So just bear with me for a second. Yep, I'm live in YouTube too, so again, good night to all. This is retired Command Sergeant Major Ed Centeno, again from Edson Consulting at edsonconsultation.com. You can find me there. I have a website. Before I forget, I always want to promote my wife's business. You can find her at 7heavenboutique.com and also at Facebook. Before I start again, I always like to say that this information is not sponsored by any military entity or any U.S. government entity. This is or affiliates. This is information is based on my experience, and this is just my experience. I'm not representing by any means any government entity. So before we start, good night again. I really thank you for giving me an opportunity to come into your house. I really like the comments that you guys are giving me. While I was checking my my YouTube channel, which I just started, I seen that I'm getting some commenting there and I was missing out on the comments. So just want to say, work with me because I have like 3 monitors here and my YouTube channel is on my left, and I have to turn myself to actually to see the comments. So my point is, if I don't get to your comment and actually answer your question at the moment, just give me some time and I'll answer. What I'll try to do is, on every live that I do, on the next following live, I'll get those questions and I answer them to the best of my ability. But I noticed that I'm getting some feedback on YouTube, and that is awesome. And we'll talk about that in a second. What I've been doing the last week, I helped one of my good friends increase his VA percentage to 10%. That's awesome. Great for him. I've been getting a lot of people asking me about VA claims, and I'm doing those still. I'm still notarizing documents. If you live in the Central Florida area, let me know. I can meet you any place, and I'm trying to branch out the business to make sure I advertise. And I'm doing this. I want to help people out, like I said before, special veterans, and I want to do a combination of some things in here. Because I like to stay engaged, and I tell you, since I retired from the military, there's a lot of spare time, even though I was and I am doing my master's, but I took a little break, and then I'm trying to take 4 more classes this year, but I'm definitely gonna finish it. So let's go about the questions from last live, and one of them was from my good friend Caban, and he talked about talking in some specific words about the resume. And I'm going to answer the question the best I can. I'm going to put part of my resume so we can discuss a little bit before we go into the topic of tonight. And just to answer the question, it's a little bit tricky to use specific words that you actually want to use for your resume, because it has to do with what job you're applying for. And I brought some examples last week, and one of the examples I brought was if you are applying for a technical job, for example, IT, you know, those that work in computer. I mean, there's a field in the military that you can actually work in computers, and you can transfer that resume into your resume. But I give you my example. If you're applying for a management position and you retire in a higher echelon management position in the military, and that's my case, I mean, how do you transfer that language to a resume? And I'm just going to give you some bullets that I have on mine. When we're talking about words, and this is just to answer the question that Caban had last week, if you manage people, how do you write that? I mean, you're managing soldiers, right, on the field. You're managing equipment. So in this resume right here, I have a bullet directed. That means that I was in charge of up to 800 soldiers. So those some of the words that you want to use in your resume, when you're looking at your job description that you're applying for, that's where you start building your resume based on the requirements for that position. So the words to use varies depending on the job that you're applying for. Another example here is how do you put in writing that you actually conduct inspections? I'm talking about leadership positions. You can use the word evaluated, okay? Some of the words that you can use: training, how to use training in there. The amount of money that we're in charge of in the military, what kind of skills did you learn in the military? So that's some of the terms and words that you can use. But again, I can help you out with your resume. If there's a specific resume that you're trying to apply for a specific job, you can reach out to me and I can help you with that and actually translate your military education into a civilian resume when you're applying for a job. Another you know, there's some bullets here that I have in my resume. You know, some bullets. Again, this is just an overview, but I'm gonna go here, which is really important. Education. You know, I have a degree, and I'm working on my master's. You want to have that in there. Another thing you want to have in your resume is job-related training that you completed in the military service, and you can transfer that to civilian. For example, a lot of truck drivers in the military. You know, you can get and convert that to a CDL, civilian driver's license, and you can actually put that in your resume. So I put some of the courses that I completed, and you want to have that there because a lot of that stuff convert to civilian translation to actually, so you can use it in your resume. Okay. That's pretty much for the resume. That's to answer one of the questions that I had on last week. I had another question, really great question actually, and this came from Joseph. He left a message on my YouTube channel, and his question was, and we talk about the retirement, if you can draw retirement and draw your VA, and one of his question was, when we're talking about, I had a live on concurrent receipt of disability pay, and that's what CRDP stands for. Again, concurrent receipt of disability pay, and that pretty much if you can draw your retirement from the military, plus you can get VA disability. So he asked me, and this is the question, and I'm going to quote, what about CRDP? If you have been medical retired after 2.5 years, are you available to apply? So I'm going to answer that question specific and straight from the source that I found. And this is the bullets, because a couple things here that we have to break. And this is the requirement. You must be 20 years retiree. That's the key. You have to be retired with a VA rated disability of 50% of higher. So the key here is that you have to be retired. And it's a specific bullet here that answers his questions. And he says the only retirees not eligible for CRDP are those retirees who retire for medical reasons under Chapter 61 of USC 10 with less than 20 years of service. So this is people that took a medical retirement and they did not reach their 20 years of service to qualify for regular retirement. So that pretty much answered the question. The only reason or the only way you can do it is if you have 20 years of service, okay? And you have to be 50% or higher rated disability. Excuse me. It's been cold here in Florida. I mean, when I say cold, I know my folks over there, Missouri and all those places are really cold, but it's pretty affecting, I guess, you know, when we get that kind of weather here, you know, the health. But anyways, so that pretty much answered the question. Now, just on that topic, I know a lot of service members, and I know some friends, service members, that this has happened to them, that they're reaching almost their 20-year mark for retirement. And this is where this comes in, because they haven't met their 20 years to retire, but they come up on the medical board for some reason. They got into an accident, and they could be other reasons. And I want to do a live just for that, so we can clear that up, because I'm trying to get some good data and information to see how that really works. If somebody out there know how that works, and I'm talking about if a service member, active duty or even reserve, doesn't have their 20 years but is reaching almost their 20 years, how does that affect? Because I know there's some math in there that they do and they combine it, but I really want to dig into that so I can do a live on that. Okay, so that pretty much answered the questions from last live. We're gonna go into the topic tonight. What we're gonna talk about tonight is, while I put this here, I'm sorry, I'm moving my, I wanna put my, just promoting my, my website and stuff. So what we're gonna talk about tonight is, we talk about resumes, right? Those are the questions that we have last week. But I'm going to talk about how and what kind of benefits you get from working on the civilian federal service and serving on the National Guard or Reserve, okay? So how does that affect, and how does that help you, and what benefits do you have? Really important, because a lot of people get out like me with 12 years active duty, and I join the civilian federal service. Now, every agency is different, but the OPM guidelines, they're pretty much straightforward, but every agency could have their own and default to their own guidelines, and that's how that works. I'm just telling you in my experience. I got out, like I tell you guys before, and I always use my experience with 12 years active duty, and I joined the civilian federal service. And this is some of the benefits that you get, okay? And when we're talking about federal, there's a retirement system. This is the federal employees retirement system, and that's the one I fall into. And this is one of the biggest ones that you have. And I'm gonna go with number one. I'm talking about benefits for those that are still serving in the National Guard or Reserve, and they work for the government, federal government, on the civilian capacity. The first thing that can help you out is, depending how many years of service you had when you got out from the military, and this is active duty time. If you have 15 years of active service, you can start having 8 hours for leave, for vacation, okay? That's one of the ones. Another thing is that you get 120 hours, that is 3 weeks of military leave. That means that while you're working, if you get called for training, you can actually be out of your civilian federal job up to 3 weeks. And this is paid. I mean, they're gonna pay you from both jobs for that time. This is 3 weeks, 120 hours per year, per physical year, okay? Again, some agencies are different. Office of Personnel Management, OPM, have straightforward guidelines, and you can research this yourself, but they're pretty much straightforward, okay? Once you exhaust your military leave, again, some agencies are different, okay? You can use your annual leave, all right? So if you exhaust your 120 hours of military leave, you can actually use your annual leave. Some agencies allow you to use your sick leave. What you don't want to happen is for you to go leave without pay, because when you go leave without pay, what happens is you fall from the pay system, and every bill that you have there, for example, medical insurance and all deductions, actually they're gonna get you at the back. Now, if you have orders to deploy, and I'm talking about overseas of any other contingency operations, even here stateside, more than 30 days, you have to make sure that you are covered. By law, if you are participating in contingency operation, they have to pay some of the benefits up to 6 months, okay? And that differ, again, that always changing, and also every agency works a little bit different. Again, some of the agencies allow you to use the sick leave, and that is awesome, because one thing you don't want to do is go leave without pay, because you fall completely from the pay system, okay? I got some comments here, I'm sorry. I'm talking about my YouTube. So that's on that topic. Another stuff that you can claim if you work as a civilian and also serve in the National Guard or the reserve capacity. You can also get veteran point preference. We talked about that in a couple of prior lives, and that is by law under Title 5 USC Section 2108. Veterans who are disabled or who serve on active duty in the armed forces during certain specific times, periods, or in military campaigns are entitled to preference over non-veterans both in federal hiring practices and in retention during reduction in force. Reduction in force is, and that could happen, a lot of people don't think that could happen, but that could happen, is if the job for some reason is downsizing the force, and they usually give you some options, or they usually give you an early buyout for you to retire. In the military they call it TERA, and that's with 15 years. I don't know if you guys heard about that. You have 15 years active duty, they give you some kind of incentive, and they pretty much let you go. I remember when I joined in 95, I remember like it was yesterday, they were giving people that had 15 years like $30,000 to $35,000, and a lot of people took it. And they gave them, I think, up to 50% of the benefits. So don't quote me on that. I wasn't in 483, so I didn't know any better. But I tell you, some people took that because they saw an opportunity to get out and to actually probably find another job. I told you the reason I got out early, because I wanted to find me a federal civilian job, and I did, because that's to retirement. I talked about that before. I mean, why you would say no to that? So that's pretty much the reduction in force. That could happen. It has happened before, and a lot of people think, no, that's not possible. Yes, it can happen. I mean, the military does it all the time. And you see right now they're giving like up to $50,000 for bonuses for the military, so they're struggling to retain people. But sometimes when they're trying to reduce the force, they look for certain MOSs, meaning jobs, specialties in the military. They say, we don't need this many, so let's get rid of some of them. They probably give you an option to reclass to another job, but that's how that works. I talked about the increase of leave hours. Again, if you have 15 years of federal service, you can transfer that to the federal civilian service, and actually you can start getting 8 hours per pay period for vacation, and that is huge. When I came to the civilian federal service, I had 12 years, so it didn't take me that long to actually start getting my 8 hours per pay period. Talking about the additional protection against reduction force, bind your military service. What does this mean? Okay, bind your military service credits can also change your service computation date for reduction of the force. So we're talking about if they do some kind of downsize and they give you an option to buy out and actually leave early, you can use whatever time you bought military active duty service to actually to retire. Now this is specific situations, so not in every situation you can do this. I'm gonna give you an example. I'm buying 15 years of active duty into my civilian job. What does that do for me? Again, I'm buying 15 years of active military time into my civilian federal service job, okay? Well, what happens is when I do 20 years, every year that I buy active duty is increased a percentage. So by the time that I leave my job, when I do 20 years, instead of me going with 20 years for pay purposes, I'm living like I did 35 years. And that's a huge amount of difference when it comes to retirement pay. These only work for the pay unless they use it against the reduction in force, all right? And those are specific cases that you have to understand. But that is, if you have military time active duty, you have to think about twice if you want to buy it. Now, for example, if you get out of military active duty and you join the federal civilian force, okay, and you have 3 or 5 years, if you buy it right away, you don't have to pay interest. But if you wait, I don't remember how long it is now, but if you wait a certain amount of time, you start paying taxes, and when you buy it, you're gonna pay more money. For example, I bought 15 years. For me, it was around $11,000. Okay, and you can pay it as you can every month or every 2 weeks. You can make an installment, and you can do the math and see how long it's going to take you to actually to pay that money. But again, it increases the money you're going to get paid when you retire. I want to make sure everybody understand how does that work. From time to time, I'm reading a bullet here. The Federal Civil Service may go through involuntary reduction force. We talk about that to meet budgetary guidelines. Enforce numbers of other targets. In short, some members will involuntarily lose their jobs, and that is true. That has happened before. Another thing that covers you if you are in the civilian federal service is what is called USERRA, okay? And it stands for Uniform Service Employment and Reemployment Rights Act. Some of the rights this gives you, okay? You have the right to be reemployed in your civilian job if you leave that job to fulfill service in the uniform service. What that means is if you're working and the military calls you to serve, we're at war, and the president declares a declaration of war and you get orders, you're covered. And you are covered all the way up to 5 years they have to hold your job, okay? You ensure that your employer receive advance reading or verbal notice. That's something that you have to do. Of course, you're gonna get orders, and that's pretty much self-explanatory, to give the orders. You have 5 years or less of cumulative service in uniform service while with that employer. You return to work or apply for employment in a timely manner after conclusion of service. So whenever you finish your time, if you're deployed or whatever, even stateside or overseas, you pretty much are incorporated back into your job. It's a process, but every agency works differently, but you are covered by this law. You have not been separated from service without disqualifying discharge or under other than honorable conditions. That means that, of course, you have to make sure that after you serve in your time, either deploy here or overseas, you actually finish your term with an honorable discharge. And I think that's pretty much self-explanatory. So that's pretty much it. Short video today. I really wanted to cover some of the questions that I had last week. If you have any questions, again, you can write them on my Facebook on the comment. You can also send me a private message in my website at edsinconsultation.com, or you can actually send me comments how people are doing on my YouTube channel. Again, if you like these videos, please share with somebody. I'm trying to help veterans out there. Also in my YouTube, make sure you subscribe. Every case is different, so your case might be different from somebody else. So don't take the first advice that you get. I mean, talk to somebody that knows. I always tell people that I'm talking from experience. I'm just not talking, that I'm reading something and I'm pushing it out there. This is something that I have left through the system. There's a lot of people that do videos out there and they do a great talk, and I give them. I'm not competing with anybody, but they do a great talk, but they have not lived this. This is from experience. I'm living it, I'm in it, and actually I know how the system works, okay? When I was a command sergeant major in the military for 3 years, sometimes I was out on my job for up to 4 months, a year. When I was a command sergeant major in Puerto Rico, I was activated during Hurricane Maria. I was activated during the earthquakes. And even though I didn't do the whole amount of days, I was gone a lot, okay? So sometimes I ended up going live without pay. But I try to do my best not to do that, because what this does is it could affect your retirement, meaning that you probably will have to do some extra time in order to get credit for your retirement, and you don't want to do that. So that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, guys, please send me a private message. For those out there that need a specific help on something, don't hesitate to contact me. I am here to help, and I really appreciate you guys' help. If you have any questions, again, if you don't have time to put them now, you can do it after the live, and then I'll answer them next week. I'm going to start transitioning to Spanish. Those are more than welcome to stay. I salute you, my brothers. We know stuff is getting bad over there in Ukraine, but that's another subject, but I hope that it doesn't go the way it looks like it's going right now. So again, thank Caban. I know probably Caban's gonna stay a little bit. Neftalis Ortiz, thank you. I have also my brother Rob in there. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm gonna transition in Spanish, okay? Muy buenas noches. Le habla el sargento mayor de comando retirado Ed Centeno. Estaba haciendo un live esta noche de un tema bien interesante, de los beneficios que tienes cuando estás en la reserva y en la Guardia Nacional y trabajas para el Servicio Federal Civil. Y antes de empezar en el tema, voy a contestar unas preguntas que fueron traídas la semana pasada. Y las preguntas fueron específicas. Una fue de mi hermano Caban, y él estaba preguntando que cuáles son o palabras claves que puedes utilizar en tu resumen que transfieres tu entrenamiento militar en lo que es el resumen, o cómo traducirlo a la vida civil, que algunas veces es un poquito complicado. Y la contestación de esta, para contestar, utilicé mi resumen o parte de mi resumen. Entonces, para ir brevemente aquí rápido, palabras claves, como él me preguntó, fue trabajos técnicos, ¿verdad? Entonces traje ese punto. Entonces traje mi experiencia, por ejemplo, en posiciones de liderato o posiciones de supervisión. Palabras como encargado o dirigirse o evaluando, comunicación, destrezas de comunicación. Todas esas cosas son importantes, cómo se transfieren al resumen para que esos puntos claves, cuando hagas tu resumen, obviamente cualifiques para ese trabajo que estás aplicando. Entonces, lo que es la supervisión, el apoyo directo de estar con soldados al día a día, estamos hablando de dirección, estamos hablando de comunicación, estamos hablando de destrezas de equipo, estamos hablando de la habilidad y destrezas de comunicarse con otras personas y de planificación. También se puede convertir en estratégica, o cuando estamos hablando de compañía o a nivel de batallón, pues obviamente ya estás entrando a los escalones operacionales. Todo eso tú lo puedes utilizar en el resumen. Otra cosa importante también que hablé era que se añadiera, bien importante, a lo último, la educación. También que pongas ahí los que fueron supervisores tuyos o los que son supervisores tuyos si todavía está en la milicia. La educación, di mi ejemplo, tengo un bachillerato y estoy haciendo mi maestría, pero también es bien importante que pongas tu entrenamiento relacionado a la milicia o a tu récord militar. Eso es bien importante porque hay muchos trabajos que no entienden el entrenamiento que tú has hecho militar, ¿ok? Y doy ese ejemplo. Y es difícil de proyectar que yo tuve sobre 800 soldados y el tipo de trabajo que hacía, aunque era reservista, un staff de activo, y Cabán me puede ayudar en esto, como de 26 AGRs o Active Guard and Reserve, que son soldados activos, y tú constantemente estás recibiendo llamadas, o básicamente tú estás directamente supervisando un staff un consejo de 26 soldados activos, no hablando de los primeros sargentos, los comandantes y también las unidades. Pero es bien importante que pongan eso. La otra pregunta que salió fue, ¿qué dijo Escabán? No te entendí, mi hermanito. ¿Qué dijiste ahí? Es que tú hablas en clave, mi hermano. Tú eres mi pana. Otra pregunta fue de una persona que se llama Joseph, que me dejó un mensaje especialmente cuando eres Raider y Senior Raider. Bien importante, tremendo punto, hermanito. Si tú estás en una posición de liderato, que tú tienes soldados debajo de ti, subordinados, es bien importante que tú proyectes eso en tu resumen, porque muchos trabajos en lo federal civil, por ejemplo, un supervisor puede tener 8 empleados, y para nosotros eso es una escuadra, que eso lo hace un E5 o un E6. Pero aquí dudarás o no dudarás que algunas veces un G13, ¿verdad? En la escala de G13 solamente lo que supervisa son 8 empleados. Y tú dices, pero ¿cómo es posible? Así es que trabaja el sistema, yo no lo diseñé. Pero una persona como yo, que tuvo sobre 800 soldados en comando, o esas personas que tienen esa experiencia, pues obviamente tienen mucha más experiencia de liderato y de lo que son destrezas de lidiar con personas, ¿verdad? Lo que son al nivel estratégico, ¿verdad? Pero desafortunadamente así es. Pero es bien importante eso cuando tienes subordinado, el número de subordinados que tienes y cómo transferir eso a lo civil. Voy aquí a la segunda pregunta que me preguntaron, que fue Joseph, y estaba hablando él, hizo un live de si podías recibir tu retiro de reserva después de 20 años o activo, y también tener discapacidad de veterano, y dije que sí. Pero la pregunta de él era específica: si te dieron un medical discharge o te discapacitaron por condiciones médicas mientras estabas en servicio. Esto puede suceder de diferentes maneras. Tuviste un accidente mientras estabas en entrenamiento, tuviste órdenes para irte para overseas o hasta aquí mismo en los estados y te lastimaste, entonces la condición obviamente te impidió de quedarte en servicio y no llegaste hasta tus 20 años. Y para contestar la pregunta que él preguntó, que fue que si él se retiró médicamente y si después de 2 años y medio si podría aplicar para recibir compensación de discapacidad de veterano. Y aquí la contestación dice que tienes que tener 20 años retirados. Si no tienes 20 años retirados de servicio, no cualifica. La otra cualificación que había hablado de esto anteriormente es 50% o más grande de discapacidad de veterano. Básicamente eso contesta la pregunta. Cada caso es diferente, por eso le digo, algunas veces hay unas cosas en específicas que hay que verlo porque cada caso es diferente. Con eso vamos para el tema de esta noche. Voy a poner aquí para seguir promocionando el negocio. Pero esta noche vamos a hablar de los beneficios que tienes cuando trabajas para la Fuerza Civil Federal y qué cosas te cubren y cómo usar básicamente los parámetros que te deja hacer el sistema. Y básicamente esto es si tú trabajas para la Fuerza Federal Civil y eres reservista o guardia nacional, ¿ok? Básicamente eres tiempo no completo, pero en tu trabajo civil eres tiempo completo, federal civil. Perdón. Estos son uno de los beneficios. A ti te dan 120 horas al año para que tú puedas hacer tu entrenamiento militar. Y esas 120 horas al año son pagadas, o básicamente vas a estar cobrando de los dos lugares. 120 horas son 3 semanas. Cuando tú terminas tus horas, cada agencia es un poquito diferente, pero las reglas de OPM, ese es el headquarters de Human Resources, todo lo que vean con papeleo con la paga, dice que también tú puedes usar tus vacaciones del año, ¿ok? Y algunas agencias también te dejan usar tus días de enfermedad. Lo hacen para que tú no te vayas, lo que se llama leave without pay, que básicamente es vacaciones sin paga, cuando te caes completamente del sistema de paga. Tú no quieres hacer eso porque si tienes seguro médico, si tienes otras deducciones de tu paga, te va a afectar cuando vuelvas al sistema porque te van a deducir toda esa cantidad. Si tú tienes órdenes de movilización para una declaración de guerra que el presidente la hace, o hasta, por ejemplo, un huracán María, y tú te dabas 30 días, 3 meses, por regulaciones, depende del tiempo que tú te vayas, se supone que la agencia te pague el seguro médico. Y algunas veces lo que sucede es que las agencias no saben, o las personas que trabajan en esa área no saben, y la gente que trabaja en el sistema se afectan, desafortunadamente. Y tengo compañeros que le ha sucedido, a mí me sucedió una vez, y desafortunadamente eso es correcto. Acaban en Title 10 o Título 10 órdenes, obviamente depende cuánto tiempo estés movilizado. Title 10 o Título 10 es básicamente cuando te ingresan a la fuerza activa por un periodo de tiempo, y entonces obviamente pues el comandante, Commander in Chief, estoy hablando del presidente, declara una declaración de guerra o de emergencia. Bien importante. También tiene preferencias de veteranos en tu trabajo. Eso está bajo el título 5 USC en la sección 2108. También los que son discapacitados tienen unos beneficios por algunos periodos que estuviste en servicios, por campañas de guerras también. Y también para lo que se llama reduction in force, y eso básicamente cuando estás reduciendo la fuerza por algunas razones. Cuando estás reduciendo la fuerza, lo comparé con el ejército, lo que se llama TERA, que es cuando Temporary Early Retirement, cuando 15 años puedes estar activo y abren una ventana para que te retires. Los beneficios no son igual que hiciste 20 años, pero te puedes retirar con unos ciertos de beneficios. Algunas veces te dan hasta un bono, y eso también puede suceder en la Fuerza Federal Civil. Mucha gente se cree que no, pero sí puede suceder, y esto es completamente desde donde vienen las regulaciones. Puedes también comprar tu tiempo activo para que te ayude en el porcentaje de la paga cuando te retires de tu trabajo civil. Di mi ejemplo, yo estoy comprando 15 años de servicio militar activo, cuando yo me retire con mis 20 años con el gobierno federal civil, en vez de cobrar con 20 años, voy a cobrar como si hice 35 años, y eso sube el porcentaje bastante alto. So, te ayuda a incrementar. Cada año que tú compres, incrementa un porcentaje. Y es hasta no sé hasta cuándo, entonces después te dan un pequeño porcentaje, pero te ayuda. Tienes que comprar los años bien rápido cuando sales del servicio militar porque empieza a coger intereses. Y mucha gente no sabe eso. Di mi ejemplo, yo estoy comprando 15 años y estoy pagando sobre $11,000. Y por eso es la confusión que algunas veces, pero ¿cómo es posible que tú puedes retirarte de dos sitios y estás comprando los años? Porque tú estás pagando esa cantidad de dinero, ¿sabes? No es que esto sea de gratis, eso te ayuda para la paga. También si hay una reducción de fuerza, ese tiempo que tú compraste te puede ayudar y en vez de los 15 años, o si te dejan ir a los 15 años, pues te ayuda en la paga. ¿Ok? Eso mucha gente tampoco lo sabe y buscando mucha información he buscado mucha información de eso. Cuando estás comprando tu tiempo, hablé de eso que te pueden dar si involuntariamente te están sacando del trabajo, como hablé, pues obviamente puedes usar tus años para usarlos para incrementar tu paga. ¿Okay? Y eso también cambiaría la computación de servicios, los días de servicios que tuviste. Otra parte de la ley que te cubre para los empleados federales civiles que están en las Fuerzas Armadas todavía en tiempo no completo o tiempo parcial, se llama USERA, ¿okay? Y eso es Uniform Service Employment and Reemployment Rights. Y esto lo que dice son algunos, hay muchos más derechos, pero solamente voy a cubrir estos esta noche. Dice que tú tienes el derecho a retener tu trabajo si te movilizan y tienes derecho hasta 5 años puedes retener tu trabajo. Tu trabajo no se puede ir, ellos no te pueden despedir de tu trabajo, porque básicamente fue el gobierno que te está llamando para seguir sirviendo a la nación. Obviamente tienes que darle una noticia al empleador, eso es bien self-explanatory, tú sabes, eso es bien, se explica solo. Tienes 5 años acumulativos, servicios que puede estar fuera de trabajo. Lo que es seniority tampoco se supone que lo pierdas, se retiene. Cuando regresas, obviamente te reintegran al trabajo. Obviamente cada agencia es diferente y cada agencia tiene su protocolo. A ti no te separan del sistema. Solamente tú te vas sin paga. Tú todavía tienes acceso al sistema de la paga. Obviamente lo que va a aparecer en el sistema cuando regularmente tú cobras es un cero, que básicamente no estás generando dinero, pero obviamente todavía estás en el sistema hasta que regreses otra vez y te ingreses en el trabajo. Bien importante que sepan que obviamente que si hiciste órdenes, te fuiste con un honorable discharge, con un honorable, que te fuiste honorable, que no te metiste en problemas, en otras palabras. Eso es bien importante porque obviamente si te metiste en un problema te puede afectar en tu trabajo, depende cuál problema te metiste y eso te puede afectar en muchas otras, hay muchos variantes. Yo siempre doy mi ejemplo y yo sé que muchos de ustedes todavía están en servicio y algunas veces están pensando salirse del servicio. Esto es por encima. Si tiene alguna pregunta, estaba hablando que me pueden enviar un mensaje por mi página. Entonces, si no, pues en Facebook también he tenido comentarios y lo estoy contestando. O también me pueden escribir en Facebook. Lo que voy a tratar de haciendo es, si hay una pregunta que no puedo contestar en el live, pues en el próximo la contesto. Pero de veras, muchas gracias por conectarse, de verdad. Si van a mi YouTube, por favor suscríbanse. También si están en mi Facebook, compartan los videos. Estoy tratando de ayudar a más veteranos. El último que hice, incrementé 10%. So, poco a poco estoy ayudando a más veteranos y quiero seguir ayudando a más veteranos para ayudarnos a nosotros. Prontamente también estoy buscando qué plataforma puedo utilizar para invitar a personas y hablar de tópicos diferentes para podernos conectar y que la gente nos vea. Y básicamente esto se va a convertir en un podcast, básicamente. Y prepárense porque mucha gente ya me dijo que están dispuestas a ayudarme. So, le diré cuando, para entonces entrar ahí y entrar de temas interesantes, porque mucha información, ustedes están actualizados, mucha de esta información cambia porque todavía algunos de ustedes están en servicio y es interesante, tú sabes, que podamos compartir esa información. Pero de verdad, los saludos, amigos. Cabán, cuídate, mi hermano. Good night to all. Si tienen alguna pregunta, avísenme por favor. Cojan los faves, avíguense que hace mucho frío por allá por el norte. Acá se puso a 32 los otros días y estaba un poco frío. Y el OnlyFans cuando viene. ¿Quién es ese? El OnlyFans. Dime, ¿quién es ese? ¿Quién es? ¿Quién? ¿Ese eres tú? No sé quién es el OnlyFans, mi hermano. Come on, be open, man. Tú hablas como en clave, brother. I mean, I'm gonna have to decipher your messages, man. Pero mientras vamos a hacer estos live, pues obviamente se va a convertir en donde nos contestamos preguntas y veo qué está poniendo la gente, obviamente, y todo el mundo comparte. Tú sabes, para esto es todo. Eso es la única razón que estamos haciendo esto. Y yo sé que mi amigo aquí, cuando se vaya, me va a estar contactando para obviamente poner estos VA claims, porque hey, todo el mundo tiene derecho y todos estamos en el sistema, todos le servimos a esta nación y eso es un derecho que tenemos. So, buenas noches otra vez, Dios me los bendiga, nos vemos otro día, mi hermano. Bye bye.